Hello and welcome back to Mosquito Bites Live, where we have casual conversations on what's trending. Once again, my name is Pablo Carrera, coming to you from the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District. We're super excited to continue bringing back all our casual conversations for Mosquito Bites Live. I'm specifically excited about our guest today, which I'll be bringing on in just a few minutes. I see you're already tuning in. But before I bring you on board, I just want to acknowledge a few things. Again, this is Mosquito Bites Live, where we have casual conversations on what's trending. Last week was National Public Health Week. So many great conversations on all things public health and things that we're doing, not only in vector control, but all our friends in public health. And also, next week, we have California Mosquito Awareness Week. Another big week we're all gearing up for, and super excited to bring you such great information for California Mosquito Awareness Week. And we want to give a quick shout out to the city of Monrovia and Alhambra, who have already declared next week California Mosquito Awareness Week. So big thank you to our partners in our cities who are already jumping in on the conversation. And we have a few more cities that will be joining us as well, so stay tuned for those. So I already saw Food Ed is already tuning in, so I'm gonna go, guys, and bring you on board for Mosquito Bites Live. Where we have casual conversations on what's trending. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Pablo. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Well, super excited to have you on board for our Mosquito Bites Live Instagram Live series here with us. Do you want to just give a brief introduction of yourself and a little bit of what Food Ed is?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Dr. Kristen Ritzaw. I have a PhD in religion and ecology. So I was in higher education for 15 years and just started to see around town all the school gardens. You know, they look good for a couple months, and then after that, they start looking a little shabby, and just started to think outside the box of what we could do for K through 12 education, outdoor education. There's a couple of companies, but a lot don't come into San Gabriel Valley. So we wanted to ramp up that idea of education. So we partner with 5 different schools in Monrovia right now. We run their school gardens. We have a STEAM program, an entrepreneur program that we're trying to build. We have a really strong K through 5 program, and then we're building our middle school and high school programs right now. And we're really passionate about reimagining what garden and food science can be. So we are looking at different career pathways with the kids. We're building things in the gardens with them. So we're bringing in that whole idea of STEAM, which stands for science, technology, education, art, and math. So yeah, we have a great team that we're working with, and some great community partners such as yourselves. So I can answer more questions later, but that's kind of a brief overview.
Awesome. Well, we truly love what you guys are doing at Food Ed. It's always so cool being in positions like this and seeing and partnering with a lot of programs and organizations out there, because I think back of when I was a student or in elementary school, I'm like, I would have loved to have been or these types of programs, because they all sound so cool. And like you said, it really builds so much amongst students and everything that they're learning just by learning how to plant and all the different elements that go involved with that, with STEAM and bringing all that together. It's such a cool opportunity. So we're hoping more cities and more organizations in the city of San Gabriel get involved with Food Ed, and we can all partner together in creating this whole STEAM education for students out there.
Cool.
So that brings me to my first question. We kind of touched on it. And like I mentioned before, there's a lot going on. And especially now with spring, we're well going into spring. So it's a perfect time to learn more about gardening and what we can do. So why is learning about gardening and edible education so important?
So studies on gardening show again and again that gardening at any age helps you move your body more, helps you be active, helps you eat better. All of our work in the schools, and I should say we help run the Monrovia Community Garden as well. So all of our studies on our end show that as well. And there's a huge parallel between mental health and gardening too. So in San Gabriel Valley, we can be outside most of the year. And so why not really lean into that and understand our native pollinators, plants, and vegetables that we can grow. There's also a real hunger in this area for gardening knowledge and, drought tolerant and what that looks like to have a healthy garden. So we're all about that. And I think in this time of like, what can we do that's drought tolerant? People are really surprised that vegetable gardens can be, mosquito friendly, not mosquito friendly in the way of attracting them, but
keep them away.
Watering, keep them away, and be drought tolerant if you have a really good irrigation system. So I think learning about gardening and edible education, it's not only just about the food, but it's about our ecosystem too. So all of our gardens have pollinator plants and things that we do to teach people about what's going on in their neighborhoods. And your neighborhood includes all your critters. So we have to include them in the education too.
You touch on really, really good points there. Things that definitely mesh well with mosquito control. Like you mentioned, having California native plants. Next week happens to also be California Native Plant Week. If it wasn't already a jam-packed week with California Mosquito Awareness Week, it's California Native Plant Week. So it's a great time to gain more education and knowledge on what types of plants we can plant that are drought tolerant and native to our environment, and also invite more of that those natural pollinators in our area and bring that urban garden to our neighborhoods. And that also helps reduce mosquito habitats because we're not creating those microclimates that you see with all these tropical plants and plants that use more water in that sense. So by being more California native plants, you're bringing in more of the native insects and then reducing mosquito populations out there and preventing mosquitoes as well. Basically, you're not opening the floodgates to invite mosquitoes into your yard with California native plants.
Exactly.
So that's a really, really good point. And I really liked how you touched point on gardening is so effective when it comes to mental health and things like that. It can be very therapeutic. I find myself, even with simple things of having a basil plant, I find myself almost, obsessing to see how it's growing and flourishing. So those little things can be a great break in between all the craziness that we all experience on a daily basis.
Yep, totally.
So again, this is Mosquito Bites Live. We're here with Food Ed and talking about all things food ed and what we can do to better educate ourselves with edible gardens and gardening in our areas. So that brings me to my next question is, what impact can gardening have on young students?
Yeah, so I've got some notes that I'm looking at too. So just wanted to make sure I'm citing the right studies. But the U.S. Department of Education actually has a lot of research on this, and the research demonstrates that the gardens in schools are cost-effective, cost-saving, and improve student and staff productivity and health. So there's increased engagement, increased critical thinking skills, and they also, what we're seeing is we really want to introduce a lot more career pathways, especially for those 6 through 12 grades. So not only thinking about, eating healthy and wellness in the garden, and we love when a kid takes that carrot and pulls it up and sees how it grows for the first time. That is so important, but we also want to take it to the next step of what can you do with that carrot? Is that carrot an avenue for being an entrepreneur, a chef, a food waste champion? There's so many different things. Excuse me, I have a little itch in my throat.
All good.
But there's so many things that we can think about in terms of, oh my gosh, I'm going to go get a glass of water.
No worries. While you take a glass of water, I'm going to allow myself to interject with some of the education things that you mentioned. It's so important to get students involved with gardening. And like you already mentioned, it gives us a chance to expose students to different opportunities and different things out there. And it's very similar to what we do with our program, EcoHealth Vector Education. Our education specialists love what you're saying about introducing students to new environments and different things that we can do to get students involved, whether it be in public health or gardening or understanding how things work. Because we don't always know about these things until we're introduced to them or understand them. Because I know from personal experience as you grow up kind of thinking, oh, the only career opportunities are teacher, doctor, lawyer. But
Right.
as you grow up, you start to understand that, there is a plethora of career opportunities out there. And we're exposed to those at an early age. It can get us really interested in, oh, I love doing stuff in public health, or I love gardening, or to be a chef, or different things like that. If you get that exposure, it can really get you more involved into those careers.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's
I
okay.
got like a total dry throat.
That's what Instagram Live's all about. Things happen.
Got to keep people on their toes, I guess. But
Right.
thanks to everybody that's watching and your patience and grace. So we're really at a crossroads, especially in the state of California, about green jobs and, even with the new food waste law, people think that they have to be, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, but you don't have to be a master gardener to jump into these areas. Pollinator and efficient vegetable gardens.
Take your time, don't worry.
Oh my gosh. Reduce water usage by 60 to 70%. So maybe I'm allergic to something over there. I'm going to move places.
I'll give you a moment to collect yourself.
Yeah.
But like I was mentioning, our EcoHealth Vector Education program, be sure to check out our website, vectoreducation.org. We get students involved with everything STEAM. It's very simple for teachers to sign up their classroom. And as a teacher, I know teachers are extremely overwhelmed and there's so much going on their plate already. And when it comes to our EcoHealth Vector Education program, it's super easy. You just sign up and all really have to do is just sit in your classroom and let our education specialists do all the heavy lifting. So we encourage every teacher to get themselves involved with our EcoHealth Vector Education program and get students exposed to the biology of a mosquito or the world of public health, because you never know how that exposure can help encourage students in different career paths.
Yeah.
How are you doing over there?
I think I'm okay. Goodness gracious. We were working with some moon dust yesterday with the students, so I think there's some remnants floating around. Yeah, but I think I'm okay.
Okay.
So I mean, all this to say, the gardens really help promote healthy activity. We really want to think about ecosystem restoration, that there's more that you can do with outside spaces than just grass. And there's just so many benefits. When I think about the community garden, meeting your neighbors in a healthy space, there's so many different people that have really learned from our classes too. We have free classes at Monrovia Community Garden, from everything from vegetable gardening to drought tolerant plants. So having not only the kids engaged, but the adults engaged, it makes it really holistic. So yeah, you're right. Teachers are maxed out. So that's why organizations like yours and mine can come alongside these teachers and really help introduce these concepts. Connecting it to the food is really important too. So all of our units have some connection with food science. So we have popcorn and then we, sprinkle fresh dill on it with the kindergartners. And they're like, what are you doing? And I would say 95% of them end up really liking it, but they've never done that before.
Right.
And so really having them engage in these new ways of understanding their local pollinators, their local plants, their local food, it just opens their eyes from a really early age. And then we're able to really capture the attention of their parents too, and these workshops that we have. So yeah.
That's awesome. And we'd love to hear that, getting students and parents involved with the education and take off some of that heavy lifting for teachers so they can focus on the important things, and bringing us into the classroom is an easy bonus for teachers to easily do when it comes to getting students involved with different things. So again, this is Mosquito Bites Live, where we're having casual conversations on what's trending. Today I'm joined by Food Ed, and we're going over simple ways to learn more about gardening, why it's important to get students involved. And that brings me to my next question. If someone only has, let's say, a balcony or a patio, what are the first steps to setting up an edible garden?
This is such a good question. And what I appreciate about it is, a lot of people want to jump right in. And I would say before you jump into anything, assess the situation. And so we like to really encourage people. There's a Sunseeker app, and what you want to do is really look at your shade and how much shade you have on your balcony. Because if you don't have sun, you're going to be really frustrated. So the first step is to see how much sun you have. The second thing would be if you have how much sun you do have. So you need to have at least 6 hours to grow, especially your warm season veggies. If you don't, and I know that it's becoming more cost effective, but there's really easy hydroponic systems and grow lights. So those are things that are becoming more and more user friendly and easier to obtain if you really want to grow your own fruits and veggies and plants. There's not a ton of vegetables and fruits that are going to grow without sun. So for people that have balconies, patios, yards with huge shade trees, people always like to say, well, I need some shade in my garden, right? It's like, no, you actually, water is what keeps your plants cool. So unless you want to grow cauliflower, but it will bolt in the summer anyways, but there's only a few things that like really need shade. It's actually good watering techniques that are not wasteful and are going to help with those vegetables. So with container gardening, what you're looking for is first sunlight. Second would be the right pot size. So tomatoes, for instance, tomatoes are actually really tricky to grow. People think they're an introduction vegetable, and they're not. You might have one really good season with your tomatoes, and then the next season they've really depleted your soil, and you really need to know what you're doing with tomatoes after that first season. Tomatoes like deep, they have really deep roots, so they like deep pots if you really are a tomato person like myself. So it's better to go deep than wide with tomatoes. But other things that are in season right now, cucumbers, green beans, herbs like basil, oregano, all of those you can grow in pots. Peppers. It's just really important to assess your drainage. Make sure you have a really good soil, and soil would be so first is sun, second would be soil. If you're just scooping up soil from your ground and putting it in, chances are there's not a ton of nutrients in there. So you want to make sure you mix in some potting mix or some compost or worm castings. If you want to get really fancy, get some perlite or vermiculite. And those types of things really lend to having good drainage, healthy soil, making sure all your plants are being fed. The next season, depending on the size of your pots, I know pots can get really big, but you want to replenish that soil with the same things. So having that on your balcony is still really important to realize it's a living thing. You got to feed it. And then last would be water. So sun, soil, water, and then everything will be happy. And watering with containers, if you know your sunlight and if you're getting like 8 to 12 hours of sun on that patio, your plants are going to get dried out really fast in containers. So some people want to get like really fancy water meters. You have a built-in water meter with your finger. So you put that in the soil. You want to go down like a good 3 inches. And if it's moist at the end of your finger, your plant is still okay. But if you are finding that it's dry the whole way down, water it. So depending on the size of your plant, I know you mentioned you had a basil plant. My brother was growing a basil plant too, and he had this tiny little pot, and he had one basil stem, and he just kept like plucking one leaf off at a time. And I was like, dude, just replant it in a bigger pot. Like it's gonna get so much bigger. And he goes, no, I have all I need. I guess you're not making pesto. So yeah, and plants, they do like room, but they'll be happy in a 6-inch pot. Repot it to a 12-inch pot. So with people in balcony and patios, I get it, and it can be so frustrating. And the other thing I would say is check out your local community garden. So be sure to see if there's a wait list or something like that around that you can get on, because growing stuff is really fun, and you can always hang out with organizations like ours. I know there's a couple more in the area, so we're always happy to take volunteers, and yeah.
Awesome. Those are really, really great tips. I definitely learned a few things. I love your soil test there that way. And again, what was the name of the app that you mentioned when it came to the sun?
I'll double check it. I think it's Sunseeker app is what it's called. And it's super helpful. We use it on all of our garden builds, because a lot of people, even if you're thinking about building a garden, the number one thing that we see in schools and community organizations is that, it's called Sunseeker. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And um, is that they think that this, like, armpit part of the baseball field that's in shade is like, oh, we can put a garden there. And that is like the number one question that I answer when I do consults with schools. Like, you can't put a garden there. Your kids will hate the garden. You won't grow anything. And also
Those
for mosquitoes, it's not good, because if you have these gardens in shade, they'll just pool with water and they won't ever get that sunlight.
Exactly. You're taking the words right out of my mouth there. You
Sorry.
don't want to create those microclimate for mosquitoes. And like you mentioned, paying attention to all those elements are super important. And the biggest thing that we encounter a lot with people's gardens in their own yards or just their yards in general is overwatering. And like
Yes.
you mentioned, people think they need to constantly have water going for their plants or their grass. We understand it's Southern California. We're obsessed with our lawns and we love green, luscious grass. But overwatering can cause a lot of mosquito problems. So
Yeah.
making sure that you're not overwatering and just understanding, how your plants are interacting, that can also help reduce any mosquito habitats that you might unintentionally be creating in your own yard. So just being aware of all those elements, I think, are super important, not only for your garden, but also keeping away pests like mosquitoes in our yards. Again, this is Mosquito Bites Live, where we're bringing casual conversations on things that are trending. And today I'm joined by Food Ed, and we're talking about all things gardening. We went over some tips on gardening, the education behind it, bringing gardening to students, and tips for patios and small gardens that we can have. And that brings me to my next question, which is, what is the biggest misconception about gardening?
There's a few. I would say that the biggest thing that I always hear is people are scared. People are scared to start. They feel like they have to. It's kind of, I use this analogy a lot, but it's that whole idea of like, I need to be in shape before I go to the gym. It's the same
Right.
with, it's like, I have to know what I have to have all the right
You
stuff,
cut off
right?
there for a second,
And
but I believe you said you have to know everything before you start gardening.
yeah, you have to know everything and have all the right equipment and like have the right hat and the right sunscreen and the right this and all the gear. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, you just have to really um, jump in and start. And that's how we learned. We had broccoli growing in July and it all bloomed because broccoli is a flower and I didn't know what I was doing. But now I know you don't plant broccoli in July. So you just have to start. And, there's a lot of people around LA County that are super helpful, master gardeners, volunteers, organizations like ours. But we're in this to help people that just want to start too. Like, we're not in this to be experts and to, shove people out. We want to welcome people in. And I was thinking, I mean, I kind of already said this, but about tomatoes. And tomatoes are one of the harder things to grow. So don't beat yourself up if you're starting out and you're getting frustrated or things aren't growing quickly. Like eggplants and peppers take a really long time to grow. I don't even like growing them because they just take so long. Um, Easy crops to start with are green onions, herbs, cucumbers, green beans are really easy to grow. So just thinking about like what you eat and then grow something, a fun version of that. The grocery store has really taught us that there's like, they're better about tomatoes, but there's, thousands of kinds of tomatoes. I think there's 10,000 kinds of tomatoes. There's hundreds of different varieties of apples. There's so many different things as a home gardener that you can try. So trying a different kind of bean or something like that is just fun to get started. And then know your seasons would be the other misconception, is that I mentioned growing broccoli in July. We've got 2 seasons of growing in California, a warm season and a cool season. So there's a few things just to kind of get your feet under yourself to start, but just jump in, try it, get a pot, get a plant. All these people that tell me they have brown thumbs, they keep children and pets alive somehow. So this is just another living thing. So know that I heard this quote when I was doing some of my research, that the most important thing in a garden is a gardener's shadow. So check on that plant, check on that soil, check on that living thing. It's not the same as my children, but having a presence in your hobby, knowing what you're doing is just really important. So, and know that there's people that can help you. We have workshops every other month. On our volunteer days, we always do something educational. So we're here to help you answer your questions. The Monrovia Community Garden Instagram is also, I'll put it in the comments at the end, but we're also answering people's DMs and looking at people's pictures of plants and stuff all the time. So there's people who genuinely like love this stuff and want to help you. So you're not alone either, would be my final thing.
Those are really, really good tips and great way to keep people engaged and motivated to go into it. And I think that's the same way we approach mosquito control, or the way some people, oh, there goes my sign. The way some people approach mosquito control, they feel overwhelmed or frustrated that mosquitoes are just taking over their yards. And that's something that we emphasize as well. It's very simple. It's nothing complicated. It's just, like you said, understanding the biology and the education behind it. And it can be very simple. We have our simple saying of tip, toss, protect to help reduce mosquitoes in our area. Just simply tipping out stagnant water, tossing unused containers, and then using mosquito repellent, like when we're outside gardening, and making those small little habits can really make a huge difference. And like you said, understanding all that when it comes to gardening, it's very simple, just diving right into it. That's the best way we learn. We all learned that when we were in elementary school, so we should be continuing that same mindset into our adult lives and our everyday lives, just diving right into it and not being afraid to make mistakes, make a wrong turn. It's all part of the process.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, it's just, it can be so intimidating with any new hobby, but I just like to encourage people, grow a couple things that you like to eat and get started, because there's nothing better than a homegrown tomato, potato, green bean, basil. It's just so fun. So, and seeing your kids enjoy it too. If you have kids in your life, it's so fun to see them go out and just start snacking on snap peas and enjoying all those wondrous things too. So, yeah.
Definitely. So now that brings me to my final question. This is Mosquito Bites Live, where we have casual conversations and things that are trending. And we've had a really cool conversation here with Food Ed and so much great information. So be sure to check out Food Ed on Instagram with all your questions. And my last question, which I asked all our invited guests, is if you were a mosquito, what would your name be?
So this is a harder question than I really thought. So I finally landed on Mosquito.
I like that one. Very simple and easy.
There you go.
Perfect. Again, this is Mosquito Bites Live, where we have casual conversations on things that are trending. Before I let you go, do you have any closing remarks you'd like to share with our viewers?
No, just thank you everybody for tuning in and watching today. Thanks for all the work that the Mosquito and Vector Control Center is doing. And we just really appreciate the partnership. Next week is also Earth Week. So you guys have planned all of this right around a great day. So keep an eye out on our social media for volunteer opportunities, things we're doing. We're doing a few tree plantings next week at some schools. So would love to see people come out and say hi. So yeah.
Awesome. Again, this was Mosquito Bites Live, and don't forget to tune in next Thursday, April 21st at 11 a.m. for our Bite Back Tour. We'll have you back for a much larger and in-depth conversation on some of the things we touched on here with mosquito control and gardening, and things that we can do to keep ourselves safe, but also garden smart as well. And that will be available or live streamed on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. So be sure to check us out next Thursday, April 21st at 11 a.m. And on Fridays, Earth Day. So like you mentioned, what best way to celebrate Earth Day and Earth Week with so much going on and so much knowledge out there to share with everybody. Again, this is Mosquito Bites Live. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Pablo.